وسهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي، أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK راديو 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
And good morning, everybody. It's Friday, September 14, 2018. I'm Ray Hanania, your host, sitting in, of course, the second Friday of every month and many Fridays when we can schedule it for Layla Al-Husseini, whose radio show is broadcast every morning, Monday through Friday, from 8 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock in the morning in Detroit. And, of course, you can always listen online. This is Yalla Fight Back Radio, and I'm in Chicago, broadcasting through WNZK AM 690 Radio in Detroit. We're going to be taking your phone calls at 248-557-3300. Our topics this morning, I have a great guest, a friend of mine who I've known forever, Daoud Kuttab. Daoud, I believe, began as a reporter at Al Fajr newspaper in Palestine, I believe based in Jerusalem or the West Bank. It was an English language weekly, and I remember going there in the 90s, and I think that's after he left. He went to Al Quds newspaper, and which was the Arabic language daily newspaper in East Jerusalem, and he also wrote many columns. He's one of the few Arab world journalists I really admire because he was so professional about his writing. He's not just a opinion columnist, but he's actually a journalist, a newspaper journalist who writes stories based on facts. And, you know, that's hard to come by in the Arab world because everybody wants to tell you their opinion, but nobody wants to just present the facts and let the public decide what's going on. But I remember writing at Al Fajr, visiting there once, and they showed me the newspaper because the Israelis censor everything. You know, here in the United States, they don't like the American media and this pro-Israeli media doesn't like to talk about it, but they would censor everything and cut out actual parts of a story that they didn't like. The Israelis would cut it out, and then the Al Fajr would publish it with the spaces where the text was cut. And I thought that was a great protest against the Israelis. Daoud recently wrote a great piece looking back 25 years at the Oslo Peace Accords, and I thought it would be appropriate to spend this hour with Daoud and talk to him. Daoud, welcome to the radio show this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Ray.
It's a real pleasure. And before we begin, Daoud, you have a website where people can go to get more information, to follow you, to keep up with you, and read your many writings, which are phenomenal.
Yeah, the best way actually is Twitter now, these days, Twitter and social media. So just my name, Daoud Kuttab, on Twitter or on Facebook, DaoudKuttab. You can also go to daoudkuttab.com, my personal homepage. But Twitter now has exceeded everything else in being fast and quick and comprehensive.
Well, I want to talk about the past 25 years, but since we brought up Twitter, let me ask you a question. Let's talk about the Twitter king, President Donald Trump. Has there been any good side to what Trump is doing in the Middle East? Is there anything good that can come out of what he's up to? What do you think?
Well, you know, it's hard to answer this question, in a fair way, for the simple reason that for the last year and a half or 2 years, we've been in the dark about something called the ultimate deal or the deal of the century. Right. They keep saying that this is something that is really, important, but we don't know anything about it. All we know is what we see on the ground, which has been a relentless kind of one-sided attacks and statements and actions by the U.S. government, by Trump, whether it's moving of the embassy, whether it's cutting off hundreds of millions of dollars from the refugees, even the last cutting $25 million, a very small amount from hospitals that treat children with cancer in Jerusalem, and finally, a few days ago, the closure of the Palestinian office in Washington. So all of these public decisions, and in fact, even Jared Kushner today in the New York Times calls them, it kind of admits that they are punishment to the Palestinians, but he says, that in the end it's going to be good because there is some great kind of peace process that is going to come through, which we haven't seen yet. So it's hard to judge something that we don't know anything about, and by the actions we can see that it doesn't look very good.
Yeah, it's like they have some kind of magic or secret sauce that they're ready to unveil, but they haven't done it. But I've always thought that, when Trump ran against Hillary Clinton, and I took a lot of criticism for this. I ended up supporting Trump, not because I believed he was so pro-Arab, even though one of his best friends was a Muslim Palestinian, Farouk Shami in Houston, but I believed that we needed to shake up a system that had seemed like it kind of fell into maybe, I don't know, I hate to use the word malaise, but we had all these Democratic leaders and pro-peace activists who didn't really seem like they were doing what they were promising. Even like Hillary Clinton, it was like they'd smile at us and say, oh, yeah, you guys are good, I support your rights. But when it really came down to it, they didn't do anything, and I thought that misled.
Yeah, you're right, Ray, that the hypocrisy of liberal Democrats and liberal Israelis has been, this basically has been so bad because it gave people the sense of peace, and at the same time, people like Shimon Peres and others were building nuclear weapons and settling in the occupied territories. But in the end, what have we seen from Trump? Nothing better at all. You have Jared Kushner, who's been contributing to settlements. You have David Friedman, the ambassador, also, who is kind of supporting settlements. You have Jason Greenblatt. I wish somebody would just make a study of the tweets of Jason Greenblatt. You were talking about Twitter.
Yeah.
Every single Israeli that is injured, that's cut, that's made after a raid, he goes and meets with them and their families. We've had hundreds of Palestinians, unarmed Palestinians, who were killed. We've never seen a single statement of even sympathy or sorrow for Palestinians who were injured or killed by the Israelis. The only time that Jason Greenblatt, the kind of top Middle East guy at the White House, spoke in sympathy to the Palestinians was when the Palestinian Prime Minister had an assassination attempt in Gaza by a fellow Palestinian. That's the only time that they're actually expressed, even if they didn't mean it. We're stuck between some liberal Democrats who say things but they don't mean it, and with Republicans or right-wing people who don't even say anything.
Yeah.
So
how do you survive?
I'm not sure which is worse.
Daoud, how do you survive as a... how do Palestinians survive in this environment? What do we do? I always thought maybe Trump would do such outrageous things that the Arab world would rise up in anger and come back as one cohesive force and tell the Israelis enough is enough. And yet we haven't seen that.
Yeah, Trump has surpassed all expectations, not only for Palestinians. When Trump attacks Canada and NATO, what should Palestinians expect? So it's not just the Palestinians that have been on the kind of wrong side of this president. So I don't know that we could have done anything, and especially at these times when the Arab world is already divided. You have Qatar and Egypt and Saudi Arabia, the Gulf countries that used to, nobody expected anything of them, are now, mortal enemies, and they have boycotted each other and closed the borders between each other. You have Syria, you have the Yemen conflict, you have Libya, you have Sisi in Egypt that is, you have a lot of problems in the Arab world. So, we're not holding our nose and expecting anything from the Arab world. We're basically the kind of, DNA of Palestinians today is in one Arabic word called sumud, or steadfastness. Nobody is expecting anything of Trump, of Mahmoud Abbas, of Hamas, of the PLO. They're basically saying, let's wait this out. Let's stay on our ground, on the land. We have Palestinians living in Palestine. And sooner or later, we're there, and the Israelis are there. We have to find a solution. Yes, things look very bad now, but as long as we're on our land and we are in Palestine and we're in Jerusalem, they can change everything they want, but we're still there.
That's a phenomenal thing to hear, Daoud, because it can get very depressing. As an Arab American especially, we're like at the bottom of the ladder, Arab Americans, especially Palestinian Americans. We organize, we do everything, and I'm telling you, I have sat around a table last week talking about what we can do to help Palestine, and I looked around the table, and it was the same 20 people that I sat around with 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when Ibrahim Abu-Lughad, first introduced me and said, Ray, we need your help. And I thought, yeah, we're going to make a difference. Now, 40 years later, we're looking at, what difference have we made? How do you not get discouraged by the fact that there hasn't been movement? What do you do to survive?
You have to kind of compartmentalize things. You have to put things in your mind. You cannot keep looking at the deaths. You cannot keep looking at the injuries. You have to kind of create your own state of mind that says, we're here, we're going to stay here. Justice eventually will prevail. Truth will eventually prevail. And yes, it's hard and it's very difficult. But in some ways, today Robert Malley gave a very interesting thing in an interview with the New York Times, and I wrote something about it in the Globe and Mail today about the refugee issue. The Americans, in a way, unshackled the Palestinians today. The Americans today have no leverage. They can do whatever they want. They can say whatever they want, but there is no more leverage. They're not saying, we're going to cut off aid anymore. There's no more aid anymore. We're going to move the embassy. Let's move the embassy. I think the American Washington, I think, has lost a lot of ability to make any really difference in the Middle East. And as in the Oslo and as in the Camp David agreement I write, the agreements are going to happen without the Americans. They're going to happen in secret somewhere down the line, and the Americans will have absolutely no power to change them.
Well, that's always what I had always hoped for, and believe it or not, in Trump. I mean, I've always viewed the American involvement. 25 years ago, I thought, okay, maybe with Yitzhak Rabin, and we can talk about this after our break in a few minutes, but that with Yitzhak Rabin, he was genuine, that even though he wasn't the nicest guy in the world, I thought that, yeah, this guy is ready to make peace, and then, of course, the Israelis killed him. But I think Trump did for us what we needed, right? To get the United States off our back with all these fake promises and all this fake money and everything. The fakeness is on the United States. And as you say, they don't have us under their thumb anymore. You're right. We can do whatever we want. And now it's in our own destiny. That's a good thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And look what we're doing. Going to the International Criminal Court. We used to, for 10 years, we kept on saying yes, no, yes, no. Now we're going to go there. We're going to raise our voices, and we're going to demand the war criminals to be put to trial. It's difficult. It's hard breaking, but I think we are free now of the Americans saying, we're giving you some money, so you better behave.
Yeah. We're on the line with Daoud Kuttab, a veteran journalist. And I always, when I'm on my radio show, I always talk about there's a difference between journalism and commentary and opinion writing. Journalists are professionals who write the stories, and they may do some opinion writing, but Daoud is one of the few Arab-American, Arab-Palestinian journalists based in Palestine who actually is a journalist. He actually writes news stories, which we often don't have enough of. Opinions are whatever, and we all have them, but Daoud does a good balance, and he's on the line with us giving us some great insight. Our phone number is 248-557-3300, 3300. If you want to call in and talk with Daoud and ask him a question, I think this is a great opportunity for us, our listeners in the Detroit region, and also online who are listening all over the place, to take a minute and really recognize that, as Daoud says, maybe this is a good thing, because now it's us. We can do whatever we want. I'm Ray Hanania here at WNZK AM 690 Radio in Detroit. We're going to be right back right after these messages.
تعرفوا شيء، احنا كتير بنهتم بالمقبلات بالاكل الشامي،
واحنا بنهتم بالبهارات والتسبيكة في الاكل المصري،
واحنا نهتم هواية باللحوم وجودتها بالاكل العراقي، واحنا في مطعم عشتار نهتم بيكم. اعتمدوا علينا ايا كان. نحن في عشتار نعرف ان لكل مذاق اسرار، فنحن نقدم اجود انواع اللحوم من ملحمة عشتار الواقعة على 56865 راين رود.
عشتار، قصة حضارة ترويها لكم أطباقنا المميزة في كل زيارة.
تفضلوا بزيارتنا في 3625 East 50 Mile Road, Sterling Heights.
مطعم عشتار بإدارة فادي بهنام وعلي البغدادي. 586-698-2585 586-698-2585.
Life is a non-profit charity that's provided humanitarian aid and development to people and communities for over 25 years, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Please help improve these efforts. Make your tax-deductible donation to Life now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
When it comes to reproductive medicine, IVF Michigan Fertility Centers are the recognized leaders. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 5 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. As a founding member of IVF Michigan Fertility Centers, Dr. Nicholas Shama is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. Dr. Shama has performed over 10,000 IVF cases and has helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. American board certified in both obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology and infertility, Dr. Nicholas Shama is a very caring, compassionate, expert physician that understands not only the medical but also the emotional toil of infertility on his patients. When it's time, get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio. Call toll-free 855-952-9600, 855-952-9600. The Rama Relief Foundation provides humanitarian aid into areas inside of war-torn Syria, as well as aid to the refugees who have fled to the neighboring countries in the Middle East. The foundation offers food baskets, container shipment, mental health, education, soup kitchens, and more. Go to ramarelief.org or call 248-990-4247. Any donation amount made to Rama will go to sustaining many lives. Call now 248-990-4247.
This is Friday, September 14th, 2018, and I'm your host here on live radio on Yalla Fight Back from Chicago, broadcasting through Detroit Radio, WNZK AM 690. Our phone number is 248-557-3300, and our guest on the line is Daoud Kuttab, a veteran Palestinian journalist and columnist who is talking with us about 25 years since Oslo, and what should Palestinians do? Let's go to the phone lines, Daoud, real quick, and take a call from Jerry. Jerry, you're on with Daoud Kuttab. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you, Mr. Ray Hanania, for taking my call. Good morning to you, and good morning to your distinguished guest, the journalist, Mr. Daoud Kuttab. Mr. Daoud, good morning to you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Daoud, thank you. Mr. Daoud, through the history a lot of Arab leaders, from King of Saudi, King Faisal, to President of Egypt, Jamal Abdel Nasser, to President of Iraq, Saddam Hussein, to President of Syria, Hafiz Assad, to President of Libya, Colonel Muammar al-Gaddafi. What I try to say over here, Mr. Daoud, the Arab people who they threat the Israeli state, especially when you remember the famous sentence, we're gonna end up throwing Israel in the Mediterranean Sea. It seemed to me, Mr. Daoud, most of those Arab leaders, they are gone, and Israel is still there. Don't you think my question is, Mr. Daoud, the time comes right now, the 21st century, to tell the Palestinians, nobody will help you except yourself. You have to start with Israel one-on-one, and
I think
talk to them.
I think that's what he's saying. I think
Exactly.
that's what he's saying, Jerry. What do you think, Daoud?
Well, I think the comparison is a bit uneven or asymmetrical, because he is comparing a country with leaders, with individual leaders, and not leaders with leaders or countries with countries. Yes, the state of Israel has survived, and yes, a lot of the autocratic leaders you mentioned are gone. We have new autocratic leaders, so I'm not sure that has changed. And I think you are right that Palestinians, and I think in a way that's how the PLO was established, because it was sick and tired of Arabs trying to piggyback on the Palestinian cause for their own thrones and staying in power. The problem is that we have, again, this asymmetrical situation. You have a very powerful country in Israel, backed by an extremely powerful country, the U.S., and Palestinians, yes, we could engage with the Israelis as much as we can, but unless this balance of force, balance of power between both sides is improved, we have very little chance. You know, you're dealing with a Netanyahu right-wing government, mostly many ministers who are settlers, that are backed by the Trump administration, supported by Jewish Zionists and Christian Zionists who are in key positions like Mike Pence and like Jason Greenblatt and others. So we're in a very difficult position. So it's not just a question, yes, it's us and the Israelis, but the Israelis are very powerful. And Netanyahu last week said, people take you seriously because you're powerful. So it's might versus right. And so unless this balance of power changes, the only chance we have is just to stay steadfast on the ground and hope that one day either the balance of power changes, or that there's some sane people in Israel or other places like the U.S. that understand that right is might and not might is right.
Mr. Daoud, excuse me if I ask you a question. It's not from the topic, but it is a part of the solution. Recently, a Palestinian politician, American, by the name of Miss Rashida Tlaib. She's Palestinian. She won, and to be in November the 1st Arab Palestinian American in Washington, D.C. What Mr. Daoud think about this victory for this Palestinian politician woman?
You're right, Jerry, and we've been following her victory very well. We're also following the very tough battle for Ammar Najjar in California and San Diego, and a lot of progressive Democrats who are really supporting the Palestinian cause, like Bernie Sanders and others. So there is, you're absolutely right that there is a new wave coming that we're hoping is not hypocritical, the liberals, but genuine people who genuinely support the Palestinian cause, and so there is room for optimism. But at the present time, there's a storm happening, just like you have a storm in the U.S. And when there's a storm, you keep your head low and you hope the storm goes away. And we have a double storm of Netanyahu and his settler government, and you have Trump and his right-wing government. So we're now in the sumud mood. We're in the mood of just waiting the storm out until better people can come in that are genuinely interested in peace and interested in international law. I mean, what Trump is doing is not only violating the kind of justice issue, but he's actually violating international law. Jerusalem is under corpus separatum agreement by the entire world in the UN, and then he just violated that by moving the embassy without even discussing, without even saying, okay, Israel should have an embassy in West Jerusalem and Palestine should have an embassy in East Jerusalem or anything like that. He just took the sides, and you cannot do that and still be an arbitrator, a fair and honest arbitrator. So for the time being, as I said, I don't think we have much to hope for, except for people like Rashid and others that and the progressives who are on her camp to actually influence international policy of the U.S.
Very good.
Jerry,
Mr. Daoud,
Mr.
Daoud, thank you for the answer. And we wish Rashida Tlaib, as a Palestinian Arab American, to build the bridges between her country, United States, and the home country, the Middle East, and we hope she will build those bridges. Thank you, Mr. Ray Hanania, for taking my call. Thank you, Mr. Daoud.
We appreciate it. Good questions. Thank you. All right, that was our caller, 248-557-3300, 248-557-3300. This is Arab Radio Live in the United States, broadcast out of Detroit with our guest, Daoud Kuttab. Daoud, did you get a chance to go to, I'm sure you did, I think, to the Oslo signing at the White House? Because you were...
no, unfortunately, I didn't make the signing. I made the peace conference in Madrid that preceded that, and I went to some of the events that followed the Oslo agreements, the Washington talks that took place in Washington, but the actual ceremony, I was not fortunate.
And you were
we saw it on television, and we celebrated like everybody else in the streets, but I wasn't there.
And you were one of the first Palestinians, I think, to do an interview with Rabin, if I'm not mistaken.
I did. In fact, I did an interview. I can plug my book now, Sesame Street Palestine. I wrote a book about my experiences, and I did interview. I was the first Palestinian to interview Yitzhak Rabin for Al-Quds newspaper, and it was in June 1993, 3 months before the actual declaration, and they were in secret talks at the time, and I didn't know, but it felt like something was going on because I asked Rabin a question. I said, you're talking to people who are appointed by the PLO. Why don't you just go directly and talk to the PLO? And then he looked to his aides and he said, how can I answer this in a nice way? And so somebody gave him a cigarette. He took a puff of a cigarette and he made a kind of a general diplomatic answer. But I didn't know at the time that they were actually in talks with the PLO, and that's why he didn't want to kind of upset the talks. And so kind of my question was right on at the time. And yes, there was extreme hope at the time that the exchange of recognition and so on. And now it sounds like we are almost in the pre-Oslo period, the closure of the PLO office, the boycott between Palestinians and the PLO and the U.S., and the almost, we're at the edge of maybe the Palestinians stopping their security coordination with Israel. So we are, in a way, kind of going back to pre-Oslo, and the Israelis are now want to ban the Palestinian flag, and so there's so many things that are happening today that remind me of when it was illegal to declare support for the PLO, and you could go to jail for just saying you support the PLO. We have had kind of 25 years of that not being illegal anymore, but the Israelis are now in the process of trying to delegitimize the Palestinians and the PLO again, and they're getting support from the U.S., which is closing the Palestinian office, which again is a move that makes no sense. How can you make peace? You need two to tango, as once Barak said, and you can't do that if one side you're not talking to and you close their embassy.
And I think you made a great point. We're not going away. So, and for the Israelis, it's either us, those people that want to make peace, or it's the others who, and I've always believed that some of the, more extreme elements of our community, they did everything they could to block peace, just as many Israelis did. They killed Yitzhak Rabin, Sharon, and Netanyahu. Their mandate has been to destroy the peace process. And what do they get after they destroy the peace process? You're right. We're just going back to the 1980s when things were terrible. And it was terrible for Palestinians, but Israelis, maybe they're forgetful. It was terrible for them too. So we're gonna continue talking. We got to take another break down here at Yalla Fight Back Radio at WNZK AM 690. My guest on the line is Daoud Kuttab. He's going to stick with us for the second half of the show, and we're going to talk some more about the consequences of the Oslo peace process, the collapse of peace, the current situations between Palestinians and Israelis, and maybe even talk about his views about the region and what Palestinians can do. I'm Ray Hanania. This is WNZK AM 690 Radio, broadcasting from Detroit, Michigan. Our number is 248-557-3300. We're going to be right back right after these messages.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood, 734-744-9796. When you're looking for the best in optical care, Dr. Imad Nakash is your doctor to see. With years of experience and thousands of successful procedures performed, you can trust your eyes to Dr. Imad Nakash. See Dr. Imad Nakash and his professional staff for your eye care needs. There's 2 locations to serve you. In Hazel Park, call 248-336-3937. 248-336-3937. In Rochester Hills, call 248-299-3937. That's 248-299-3937.
The Rama Relief Foundation provides humanitarian aid into areas inside of war-torn Syria, as well as aid to the refugees who have fled to the neighboring countries in the Middle East. The foundation offers food baskets, container shipment, mental health, education, soup kitchens, and more. Go to ramarelief.org or call 248-990-4247. Any donation amount made to Rama will go to sustaining many lives. Call now 248-990-4247.
تعرفوا شيء، احنا كتير بنهتم بالمقبلات بالأكل الشامي،
واحنا بنهتم بالبهارات والتسبيكة في الأكل المصري،
واحنا نهتم هواية باللحوم وجودتها بالأكل العراقي، واحنا في مطعم عشتار نهتم بيكم. اعتمدوا علينا أيا كان. نحن في عشتار نعرف أن لكل مذاق أسرار، فنحن نقدم أجود أنواع اللحوم من ملحمة عشتار الواقعة على 56865 راين رود.
عشتار، قصة حضارة ترويها لكم أطباقنا المميزة في كل زيارة.
تفضلوا بزيارتنا في 3625 East 50 Mile Road, ستيرلينغ هايتس.
مطعم عشتار بإدارة فادي بهنام وعلي البغدادي. 586-698-2585 586-698-2585.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
And welcome back to Yalla Fight Back Radio. I'm Ray Hanania here at WNZK AM 690 in Detroit, Michigan, with my guest Daoud Kuttab. Our phone number is 248-557-3300. Daoud, when you look back at the peace process, is there one moment that stands out above the rest that you think where this totally fell apart? Or was it just a long drawn out erosion of the peace process, downhill slide, or was there something that, had it not happened, maybe it could have been saved?
The twin kind of consequential events of the assassination of Rabin, followed by the elections of Netanyahu, really shifted the entire peace process. Yitzhak Rabin was killed as he was, singing for peace in Tel Aviv, and as there was a lot of attacks by people, including the Netanyahu people, and there was a lot of incitement against him. And after the assassination of Rabin, the numbers of Labour Party in peace went up, and Shimon Peres was due to win. But then he made a terrible mistake, and he started attacking Lebanon, and they shelled the South Lebanese town of Qana, where 98 children were hiding in a UN camp in Qana, and they were all killed. And that really turned off a lot of Palestinian citizens of Israel. And at the end, they did not vote. They voted a white paper, and basically Netanyahu won with the thinnest of majorities, like less than 1% difference. And from then on, Netanyahu and his people have basically taken over Israeli politics. So in a way, that one moment kind of was a turning point, and usually assassinations have the opposite effect, but this is a one-time where an assassination actually, unfortunately, had the terrible effect of what the assassin wanted, which is to shift and to end an effort that was going in the right direction for peace.
And Netanyahu has never really been a advocate of peace with the Palestinians at all, has he? Because he was what he is today. I think he tries to be a little more diplomatic, but I remember him 20 years ago, and you're right, he was just a terrible person. This guy, the assassin, was one of his followers, and I think you're right. He kind of created the atmosphere in which these anti-peace extremists in Israel did everything they could to stop the peace process. But didn't we also? Didn't Hamas?
Yeah, we did help. I mean, the suicide attacks by Hamas during the same period played into the hands of these extremists and scuttled the peace process. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough people behind the peace process. But again, there's some things even from your enemies you learn from. And I remember with Yitzhak Rabin once after it was a bombing, he said, we will mourn for 5 or 6 days, or whatever, 7 days, and we will fight for peace like there is no terror, and we will fight terror as if there was no peace. And that was a kind of a very strong statement of somebody who really wanted to have peace.
Yeah.
And you see the opposite with Netanyahu. Something happens, a very tiny kind of protest happens in Gaza that is totally unarmed, and they take that as an advantage or as an excuse to kind of shoot and kill unarmed people. They had the exact opposite reaction than that of Rabin. So the lack of leadership in Israel, of people who genuinely support peace and not just talk about peace with the lip service to peace, is really a problem. And I think obviously the differences in the Palestinian side, the absence of unity and the splits within the Palestinian community has really helped a lot in giving the Israeli side the chance to succeed.
So we basically made it possible. I mean, we're not the cause, but I think we've contributed to the rise of this fanaticism in Israel. There is no real peace leader. I mean, but let's, what's interesting is you made a great point, and it makes me think, we're going back to the pre-Oslo days, and is it a chance to start over? But that requires 2 new leaders. One Palestinian like Arafat at the time who was willing to engage with the Israelis, and one Israeli like Yitzhak Rabin who was willing to engage with the Palestinians. Do we have to wait for 2 people like that to rise up? Because we don't have them, do we?
We do have to wait. I mean, we right now the current Palestinian president is 83 years old, and he's not in the greatest of health, and he's basically not able to shift and to change his own ways. I did an interview, if you read that, in Arab News a few days ago with Hassan Asfour, who was one of the architects of the Oslo Agreement. He said, if I was Mahmoud Abbas, I would go to Gaza and declare a Palestinian state in Gaza, and consider the West Bank and East Jerusalem to be occupied areas that we have to ask the UN to come and give them protection until they're liberated. That kind of creativity Arafat would do in a heartbeat. He would just go there and take on his enemies face on. Abbas is, he's a bureaucrat. He's a business-like guy who cannot think outside the box, and he's saying we should keep trying to talk about peace, but there's nobody to talk to with peace. And instead they're using your moderation as an excuse to kind of take you on rather than using that as an asset. And I tell the Israelis, I said, you should celebrate Mahmoud Abbas. You're not going to get anybody close to him in the future, but the Israeli public now is all kind of right wing, and they see Abbas as a weak leader rather than as a moderate leader that is really interested in peace. So I think obviously you're right. We need on the Palestinian side a leader that can bring unity to Palestine the way Arafat brought the Palestinians together. And on the Israeli side, you need somebody who is willing to engage for genuine peace, regardless of what the Americans want or what the Europeans want, but genuine peace for future generations. These are lacking, and what happens? The crazies, the radicals, the zealots, the fundamentalists on both sides are the ones who are winning the day. And you have, zealots going on the Al-Aqsa Mosque today every day, and they're trying to kind of start prayers and bringing their wine in to celebrate on Al-Aqsa Mosque as a way of kind of angering the Muslims. These are things that are just mean, and they produce nothing, but they anger people. And on the other side, Hamas is refusing to give up control and to allow elections to happen for a new leadership. So we're stuck in this cycle. But sooner or later, this cycle has to be broken, and we will need new young leaders who will give us hope and give us kind of a new look at how to move the process ahead.
Is it worth any energy to fight the mainstream American news media to, we really don't have balance, and I've always viewed the United States, and at least in the last 25 years, to be the main focus of where peace would be decided. Now maybe that's changed. And I think you're right. If we can get the United States out of the picture, maybe we actually have a fair chance to do something. But right now, it seems like this is where the battlefield is in the United States. Do you think Arabs, as Palestinians and Arabs, have we done enough to educate Americans? It isn't just enough to say what the truth is. We have to do it in a way to influence them, to get them to understand. Have we really done enough, or have we failed on the one war front of communication?
I think there has been progress. I'm quite optimistic about the American front, what's happening in American universities, the BDS movement, progressives in America. There are things happening that never happened before, and I think there is a change even in the media. I mean, I've been able to write in the Washington Post and the LA Times more than I've been able to in the past, and I think people know more now. Of course, there is an attempt to kind of muzzle the Palestinian voice, but it's coming out. It's coming out, and people understand. Even in different levels, as your caller said, you have in some of the elections for the midterms, you're going to see some changes, and you have respectful national leaders who are speaking out for Palestine. We're still not there. We're a long ways, but the media is not the enemy. I mean, I hate to say this, but we need to really work on the grassroots, and I think the media will understand. The media will come along, but it takes courageous people, and it takes persistence and professionalism, and it takes money. And we had a great guy in the PLO office in Washington, Hussam Zumrut, but now one of the reasons I think they closed his office is because they know he was doing very well. He was communicating with the churches, he was communicating with peace groups, he was trying to reunite the Palestinian American community, and I think that's going to continue, but they realized that he was having successful run at it. He was working a lot with people in Congress. All these things I'm sure had a marker of some kind in the decision to close a mission of a country that you want to make peace for. So it doesn't make sense closing that office, and I think the Americans are going to pay a price for losing any kind of ability to leverage anything on the Palestinian side, because there's nobody to talk to in Washington anymore.
But just as going, in a sense, kind of going back, we're turning the clock back to the 1980s, just in a sense as the moderate voice, like you, me, Rashida Tlaib's election, the environment is improving. At the same time, the radical elements have increased in power too. The extremists, the people there's a larger group today that says no peace, one state. Let's turn back not just the negotiation clock, but the whole process clock. Let's go back to 1946 and let's create a democratic Palestine, state where Jews, Christians, and Muslims can live together as equals. That's not possible, is it? I mean, or do you believe that one state is possible, or do you believe that it has to be two states? Do you have a feeling on that at all?
Are you tapping my phone when I talk to my son, Ray?
I don't know.
Because this is exactly the discussion I'm having with my children, my grown children, and it's not just on one hand, I can't blame them. They've been frustrated with the ineffectiveness of the current leadership and of the current kind of moderate force, and they're saying these guys don't take. You can't win with the moderation. You have to really go. And my son says, you were in the 60s and you were worried about now. I'm still young. There is the one-state solution might have a chance in the future. I tell him it will not have a chance. You need, even if you're going to have a one-state solution, you need to go through the two-state solution, and you need a peace time before that works, because you need the Israelis on board, and you have no Israelis on board with the one-state solution. But anyway, they're dreamers. I'm not sure we can call them radicals, because they're employing nonviolent means, and I think I tip my hats to everybody who uses nonviolence, including the guys in Gaza. The marchers in Gaza are being killed every Friday. They're not shooting the Israelis. They're just saying we're here to march. Now, the right of return is not going to happen the way we expect it to, and people say we shouldn't be fighting for the right of return. But until everything's agreed to, nothing's agreed to. And the Israelis need to understand that there is a package deal that includes everything. Yes, few will return. But until there is a deal that includes an independent Palestinian state, there is not going to be we're not going to give up on rights like the right of return. Now, I wrote today in the Globe and Mail, I wish you read it in your audience, that the Israelis and the U.S., they picked on an issue that's not a game changer. The refugee issue is not the game changer. Maybe Jerusalem was, but the game changer was not the refugee issues. But by picking on them, they actually have actually reinvigorated people's interest in refugees, and Palestinian refugees today are getting a new life to their demands because of the way that the Trump administration has kind of isolated them and tried to kind of punish Palestinians for being refugees. So, Jews after 2,000 years say we have an ancestral right in Palestine, but, Palestinian refugees cannot give their right to their children. It's a joke. And so what I think, as long as we're using nonviolent means, whether you're one state or two stater, you can argue the tactics as much as you want, but it certainly is not something that I'm against. It might be, one can argue that the tactic for two states is more logical and more doable, but, they turn back to you and say, look, you've been trying it for 20 years, and what has happened? You have 4 times as many settlements since Oslo Accords was signed than you had before. What good was that? Was the Oslo Accords? No, let's have a one state, and the Palestinians in the West Bank can live in Israel, and Israeli Jew settlers can live in the West Bank, and let's fight it out demographically. I don't think it's going to work, but I cannot oppose it because it's nonviolent. As long as it's nonviolent, I think, we have to say everybody has a right to their own thinking.
We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll finish off with our guest on the topic of the Oslo Peace Accords, our guest Daoud Kuttab, a great journalist, thinker, too. Daoud, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to announce that we're going to do a campaign to push you to become president of Palestine because you actually you have the thinking that we need. And, I don't run into that thinking so much. But let's do our break. When we come back, we have a few more minutes to talk about all this. I'm Ray Hanania here at Yalla Fight Back Radio, broadcasting through WNZK AM 690 in Detroit, Michigan. Our number 248-557-3300. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back right after these messages.
قشات ميديترينيان ماركت بإدارة سهر قشات وأولاده يرحبون بالجالية العربية والكلدانية. جميع أنواع المواد الغذائية، البان طازجة، الكرزات والبهارات الطازجة. داخل الأسواق مطعم ميديترينيان شيش كباب يقدم يوميا جميع أنواع الكباب، المقبلات العربية العراقية وصواني الكامبو المميزة. تفتح الأسواق من 8 إلى 9 مساء من الاثنين وحتى السبت، ومن 8 صباحا إلى 9 مساء يوم الأحد. تقع الأسواق على 32839 نورث ويسترن هايواي في مدينة فارمينغتون هيلز. لحوم حلال للجالية الإسلامية. لطلباتكم من المطعم كول 248-538-7855. That is 248-538-7855. قشة ميديترينيان ماركت، خدمة متميزة ومعاملة راقية. تعرفوا شيء، احنا كتير بنهتم بالمقبلات بالأكل الشامي،
واحنا بنهتم بالبهارات والتسبيكة في الأكل المصري،
واحنا نهتم هواية باللحوم وجودتها بالأكل العراقي، واحنا في مطعم عشتار نهتم بيكم. اعتمدوا علينا أيا كان. نحن في عشتار نعرف أن لكل مذاق أسرار، فنحن نقدم أجود أنواع اللحوم من ملحمة عشتار الواقعة على 56865 راين رود.
عشتار، قصة حضارة ترويها لكم أطباقنا المميزة في كل زيارة.
تفضلوا بزيارتنا في 3625 East 50 Mile Road ستيرلينغ هايتس.
مطعم عشتار بإدارة فادي بهنام وعلي البغدادي. 586-698-2585 586-698-2585.
أسواق زمزم الواقع على 24065 أورشاد ليك في مدينة فارمينغتون هيلز ترحب بالجالية العربية والكلدانية. تنزيلات كبيرة على عموم المواد الغذائية في يوم الأربعاء من كل أسبوع. لا تنسوا فريش كاري اوت، جميع انواع المعجنات، وايضا صواني الكامبو المشكله والصمون الحار. لحوم حلال الجاليه العربيه والاسلاميه، الملحمه باداره قصاب الجاليه المعروف سلوان جربوع. زوروهم على 24065 اورشاد ليك في مدينه فارمينغتون هيلز، او اتصلوا بهم على 248-476-0300. اسواق زمزم للمذاقي عنوان لجميع طلباتكم. اتصلوا على 248-476-0300. اسواق زمزم للمعامله الراقية وكرم الضيافة عنوان.
Life is a non-profit charity that's provided humanitarian aid and development to people and communities for over 25 years, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Please help improve these efforts. Make your tax-deductible donation to Life now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493.
And welcome back to WNZK 690 AM radio in Detroit. I'm Ray Hanania here at September 14th, Friday, and I will be back on the second Tuesday in October doing another radio show then. But in the meantime, we're going to podcast this show. Just a brilliant discussion with Daoud Kuttab. It's so refreshing to have him. There are not a lot of English language journalist from the Arab world who really has a grasp on the issues the way Daoud has. I'd love to get him on, Ali Yunus, a couple others. But Daoud, as a journalist, I mean, I wish that we could bring journalists together to support. There's so many young Arabs and Palestinians that want to get into journalism. Do we do enough to help them, do you think, or do we need to do more? I mean, there's so many things on our plate that we have to do. It seems like it's an impossible task to do everything.
Well, I think it's a mistake to think of journalism as a medium for activism. I think
That's
activism has
interesting
its
that you
role,
say that.
and journalism has its role. I think you can serve your community and your nation by seeking after the truth, which is what journalism is all about. And unfortunately, the president is not really an honest person, but and that's why he's fighting the media, because the media's job is to search after the truth. And as Palestinians, we should have no problems. I mean, we don't need to exaggerate the situation. We don't need to kind of push something that's not there. The story is strong enough just telling it as it is, telling the story of Palestine, telling it honestly and without any worries, telling it on both sides of the aisle. No problem, because our story is a just story. It's a story of people wanting to be free. It's a beautiful story that any journalist would be happy to write about. So my advice to anybody who's interested in journalism is, A, seek after the truth, whether you're doing it in Detroit or in Chicago or in Moscow or anywhere else, and do your part on Palestine without exaggerating, without doing it, without stretching the truth. Just do the truth as it is, and the truth shall set you free.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure I agree with you in the sense that I think you're too more generous to professional journalism in the United States. I think one of our big problems has been that the media in this country has made it almost impossible for Americans to support the Palestinian cause, and I think that they've been very unfair, and I've always felt that was a battle. But I think what you're saying is that may be a battle, but we should push it aside and focus on other more important things.
Yes and no. I mean, look, I'm in contact with a lot of editors in American newspapers, and yes, there is a built-in bias against Palestinians, and there is no doubt about it. The Israelis and their supporters, whether in the Jewish community or the Christian Zionist community, have a lot of financial powers over media outlets. There's no doubt about it. But I think that still, even within the narrow margins that are there, you can still do a lot more. There's nobody that can stop you from going onto the New York Times website and commenting on an article you don't like. There's nothing stopping you from tweeting or writing or blogging or doing your own stuff. There's so much now with technology you can do as a Palestinian that is not bound by, yes, the major media still has a lot of power, but you can affect the media. I mean,
but to do it in
the success of not enough, you're right, but you have to do it in a professional way. The problem is when people try to get in, and as you were saying themselves, our plate is full, there's so much on our plate, because young people try to do everything at once, and they fail. So what my advice is, don't try to carry the entire, weight of Palestine in the Arab world and the Muslim world and defending all these things in one time. Take a small area, take a small issue, and work at it. Be persistent at it, be proper at it, be professional, and you can accomplish results. Now, it's not going to be earth-shattering results, but if you, drop after drop after drop, enough people do it, there will be a change. And that's my philosophy, is I don't try to win all my battles in one stroke. I make small battles so that eventually we'll win the war, but you cannot win the war in one stroke.
Daoud Kuttab, our guest. Daoud, that was a great note to finish on. We're at the end of the radio show, and I just want to thank you for taking the time to joining us this morning. It was a lot of fun, very informative, and I hope we can have you on again because it was really fun. DaoudKuttab.com is the website. Look up Daoud Kuttab on Twitter. You can do that also. Daoud, thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you, Ray, and God bless everybody.
We'll talk to you. We'll have this podcast online so you can hear this interview. I'm Ray Hanania. I want to thank everybody for listening in and joining us, and I'll be back in October, the second Friday.